So hello everyone and welcome to the latest in our series of COVID-19 webcasts that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly to keep you all connected. And today I am joined by three leaders of the cruise sector, which of course has been in the spotlight within this challenge. And so we're delighted and really grateful for the time that the gentlemen have given up to speak to us today. So I'm joined by Antonio Paradiso, who is the UK and Ireland Managing Director of MSC Cruises. I'm joined by Peter Shanks, who is Managing Director for Silversea for the UK, Ireland, Middle East and Africa. And I'm joined by Tony Roberts, who is the Vice President UK and Europe of Princess Cruises. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Wow, what a period this has been. I'm sure none of you have seen the like of it before. And I'm sure it's been incredibly challenging for you all. Tony, I'm going to start with you. Because obviously, I guess after coronavirus was, identified in China, then there was your ship, Diamond Princess, was in the headlines. So clearly, it's become a much bigger thing since then. But I guess it was some time ago that it first was on your radar, and you were having to deal with some very serious operational issues. So tell us what your experience has been, and then perhaps we'll go around to talk to the other guys.
Yeah, thanks, Lucy. It's been, as you say, it's been a very challenging and completely unprecedented period. And I think, 20 years in the industry, I've never seen or experienced anything like this. And I think, we were at Princess Cruises, obviously, with the situation with Diamond Princess and cancelling a lot of cruises in Asia, and then Grand Princess. We've been kind of in the spotlight of this quite a lot. And it's been, it really has transitioned from being, a couple of ships to then being the global pandemic that we find ourselves in now. And that has been incredibly challenging across the whole of the business, as we've had to adapt to really supporting our guests and supporting our crew all around the world, and really changed our whole organisation's approach to doing that. And I think one of the things that's been really interesting is, we were one of the first lines to really pause cruising and to say now's not a good opportunity for us. We shouldn't be operating at the moment with all of these things going on, which is, has obviously been something that not just the cruise line, but the whole of the travel industry has then had to do as well. And I think the thing that struck me most about that process was that it was incredibly difficult to stop operating, because there were so many restrictions with ports, restrictions with travel, and just generally, the impact that this virus has been having around the globe. Something simple like stopping all of your cruises and getting all of your guests home has actually become incredibly complex, and has really occupied all of our efforts over the last sort of 30 days plus, really, because that's been pretty much our sole focus, is how do we stop the ships from operating and get all of those guests safely home in an environment where ports and travel generally isn't possible.
So a huge operational exercise just to try and get everyone home, and crew as well. Presumably you're trying to get not just guests, you're getting crew home as well.
Yeah, and then the crew challenge is something that continues now, because the initial opportunity was getting the guests home, and now we're continuing to be challenged by how difficult it is to repatriate crew when many countries have completely closed their borders. And it's very difficult to get people to travel around the world, and we're an industry that absolutely relies on our teammates being able to travel freely, which you just can't do right now. So it's been incredibly complex and incredibly challenging, and the whole organisation really has turned its hand to I guess what can best be described as incident management rather than operating a holiday, because we've been running incidents all over the world in terms of getting guests and crew home.
Wow, okay. Well, I remember actually when this press release came through to say that you'd paused your operations. Actually, you're right, you were the first, but it wasn't long before most other cruise lines then followed suit. Let's go to the other guys. Peter, let's talk to you. How has it played out for Silversea?
A similar experience to Tony. The first challenge was to get everybody home safely. And for some ships, that was quite straightforward because they were in parts of the world that were unaffected. But we had a ship in Asia. We had 3 ships that ended up going into Australia, including our world cruise on Silver Whisper. And whilst the crew were keeping everyone as safe and looking after them, the real logistical challenge was having to negotiate diplomatic, government, airlines to get people home. And there was a tremendous spirit of cooperation, I must say, with the British government, the Foreign Office, all the different diplomatic offices around the world. We ended up having to charter our own aircraft to bring people back from South America. So the initial focus was very much on how do we get all of our guests safely home. Having completed that, as Tony said, the next thing now, which is still ongoing, is where will we park up our ships for the foreseeable future, and the crew challenge. So we're now looking after our crew, and where we can, get those crew home to their families. And then it moved into looking after our teams here in the UK and around the world. So we were one of the first teams to get out of London. So we shut down our London office 3 or 4 days before London was locked down, because I recognised the risk of commuting. And that was a transition to get everyone working from home and making sure their technology worked. Sounds simple, but it's not very simple when you're operating a call centre from home. It's now working well. But so that our second challenge is looking after our team, and then having to move into the difficult decision to furlough a number of our staff. We've all taken a pay cut at Silversea here in the UK as well, because we want to protect everyone's jobs. And then the third element, which we'll come on to talk about now, is all the work we're putting into supporting our travel agents and our guests through this immense volume of transactions that is just unique and something we haven't considered before. So it's been developing in phases. And whilst we've got an eye on the future, we're all dealing with the right now.
Okay, yeah, well, we do want to talk about how you've supported agents and guests, but let's just get an experience from Antonio. I mean, you're a line that's, very European, based in Italy. You're Italian, you've got family in Italy. How's the experience been for you, Antonio?
Probably the most challenging experience of my life. So I talk from all angles, if I'm honest. Personally, with my family being in a lockdown in Italy since months now. So trying to keep in touch with my parents, my relatives, through technology, FaceTime, WhatsApp, etc., etc. And in the meantime, we were dealing with the different phases of this catastrophe, because that's how we should be calling it. And, it's a similar story to Tony's and Peter. So we had the phase 1, where basically the virus was pretty much, in Asia, in China. So we had to pause our operations in China and the wider Asia. Then we had the phase 2. We had quite a few ships in the Mediterranean. So phase 2 still seemed safe, to travel and to cruise, within the Mediterranean Sea. But it was just a nightmare, because overnight, ports were closing down, countries were changing their policies or refusing, ships to dock in their own countries. So it was a logistical nightmare, because things were literally changing by the minute. So we had a ship stuck in Barcelona and another one in Malta. So believe me, it's been really, really challenging. Of course, our first priority was to adjust the itineraries first. And then we soon reached a stage where we had to stop our operations. However, we had passengers stuck in different parts of the world. So as already mentioned by Peter and by Tony, so you had to arrange charter flights to start the repatriation of your passengers. And then the following phase, of course, the repatriation of crew. And we have crew of 160 different countries. So you can only imagine, the work behind the scenes, dealing with the embassies, with the local authorities. And even when countries were refusing their own people, there are countries who don't want their crew back, don't want people from their own country back. So we had charter flights, repatriating the vast majority of our crew. And then we also had to deal with the crew members who actually had to stay on board, because there were restrictions in their own countries. So making arrangements for them on board, making sure they were feeling safe and sound, and why not giving them, free Wi-Fi, and any possible arrangements, to keep these people in touch with their families. And then, of course, we had to deal with the aftermath of this challenge. So how to deal with the cancelled cruise, how to deal with the future bookings.
Yeah.
So just like many other cruise lines, we've been pretty generous and flexible. We've always put the customers at the heart of what we do. So You know, we started with the 125 for future cruise credit with a refund.
And is that what you're all doing? It seems that most cruise lines are giving this enhanced future cruise credit. That seems to be, I mean, we've had good, by and large, good reports that you've been generous in terms of offering refunds or an enhanced future cruise credit. Is that something that?
Yeah, I think, you know, the what we want the cruisers to do, of course, is to give us another chance to shine in the future. So offering an enhancement to their willingness to come back has been something that I think has been natural across the industry.
And what's been the rate of people taking a cruise credit to sail again in the future as opposed to taking a refund?
So I think, to Antonia's point, from a Princess perspective, that's completely still ongoing, because we wanted to give people time to make that decision as well. So we're asking people to choose by the end of May whether they'd like to have the future cruise credit or whether they'd like a refund.
Okay.
So that gives them the maximum amount of flexibility to see how things develop and to make them.
Some must have made that decision already. They're not all going to wait till the end of May.
No,
what's been the general? I'm just not interested to know if people are, you know, most people I've spoken to say they're actually and this is not cruise, this is general travel, but they're saying they might be getting 70% or so of people who are rebooking, but there's people who have genuine reasons why they can't rebook, and they would rather have a refund. I just wanted to know what that kind of rate was in cruise, really.
Well, it's still early days. I genuinely believe there's people who are still waiting or haven't made the decision yet. So, you know, we've just stopped, you know, finished repatriating people, you know, to the UK a couple of weeks ago. So, and then we started, you know, to release all the lovely arrangements that as a cruise industry we are doing. So I believe it's still early days. I would say that a good majority of our customers haven't made their minds up yet.
Okay.
So hence where, you know, the cruise lines are giving as much flexibility as possible. So we're giving them the opportunity, you know, to book any sailing in the future without, you know, restrictions. And of course, we encourage them, as Tony rightly said, to give us a second chance, because yes, the travel industry was affected, but the cruise industry took a great battering from this situation. So we've been in the spotlight since day one, and you know, there have been some tremendous efforts and tirelessly work behind the scenes, you know, to keep our passengers safe. And we would like them, you know, to return, to give us another chance in the near future. And we are here to support them. So we are listening to everyone, to both, you know, our customers and our travel agents.
Yeah.
And why not? We're trying to be fluid, just as fluid as the ongoing situation we have at the moment.
I think, Lucy, the cruise industry have been really good at supporting agents and guests. I mean, for example, with our Cruise with Confidence, and with many other cruise lines too, you can now cancel at any time up to 48 hours prior to departure until the 31st of December. So we're saying to guests, if you have a cruise for later in the year, there's no need to cancel now. You can wait and see what happens, and at any point you want to cancel, right up until 2 days before, you can then take either your future cruise credit or your refund.
Yeah.
What we are seeing, there's a bit of a trend now beginning to happen, because we have been issuing both refunds and future cruise credits. People are now starting with a little bit more confidence to look into booking 2021. So there's some positivity about 2021 in terms of recovery, on the basis that by then all the new protocols will be well embedded and the industry will have reacted quite quickly. But we wanted all of us to offer the flexibility that if people need a refund, we action the refund. It's in all of our interests and our travel agent partners to try and hold on to the booking, either through flexibility on cancellations or through a future cruise credit. And a lot of our guests are saying, wow, the value of an extra 25% is something we should really think about quite hard. So we're having quite some success with the future cruise credit route.
Okay. Gosh, there's lots of things I want to pick up on there, but just on the future cruise credit, we've had a number of agents contacting us saying that they're having a situation where customers are booking a cruise for, say, a late May or June departure, knowing that it's going to then be cancelled, so they can then get this fantastic enhanced credit note, you know, of 125%. So I don't know whether that's something you've experienced, but we're getting a lot of agents saying it's a bit of a issue now, because people, you know, consumers are getting savvy. They know that if they book a cruise they're never intending to take, and they can get this you know, more money for it and get a better cruise next year. That's something that's happening. And so Peter, you're shaking your head. What about the other two? Have you seen any of that happening?
I'm honest. Sorry.
I think if it is happening, I think it's on a really, really small scale. I think, you know, it's I'm sure there are people out there who are speculative in terms of their approach, but I think for the most part, I think people are kind of looking for the opportunity to next take their holiday, and you know, that's what they're booking, because ultimately, I think if people are booking something, then they've got to be willing to go. So it may be that there's a bit of a safety net because of the generous terms that are in place with the cruise lines now, but it's just that it's a generous safety net that should give people confidence to book. I don't necessarily see it as an opportunity for people to game the system.
I think also need to remember that we always talk about two different types of guests. We have the very loyal cruisers, and we have the newcomers. And the loyal cruisers, they really understand how cruising works. They have a lot of faith and trust in the incredible health and safety protocols the industry's shown over the last 5 to 10 years. And they're with us. And if you look on the Facebook site and the chat sites of most of the cruise lines, there's a tremendous sense of support from the loyal guests. And I think they'll be the ones that come back and support the industry first, whilst we then take more time to persuade newcomers as to all the protocols we'll be putting in place to make sure they feel comfortable to come back. But there's a tremendous, certainly at Silversea, a tremendous feeling of support from our loyal cruisers.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I would agree with that. But I guess the industry's got all this new cruise tonnage coming on. You know, we need new to cruise. That's been the focus of most Clia conferences. It's all about trying to, you know, spread the word of how great cruise is and get more people to try it. And, you know, how concerned are you that this episode is going to put people who haven't cruised before and aren't loyal and don't know how it works, as you say, Peter, how concerned are you that it's going to really dent the growth in new to cruise comers?
I think we'll get through this. And remember, this is not just a cruise issue. We're in this together, as they say, because we can't operate a cruise without an airline, a port, an airport, and most importantly, a travel agent. The world currently is shut. So once the whole world opens up and we all start to travel, we'll see everyone come back in this together. So it's not just a cruise issue, but if you take Clia, and Tony's better placed to talk about it than me perhaps, but Clia has an incredible machine in place to work with supporting travel agents through conferences, through training, through ship visits. What will change, of course, now is the content of how we work with travel agents through Clia will all be about the new world, the new way of operating. So we have this great machine called Clia that will help us support travel agents to then inspire and educate guests as to cruising. But it'll be the new world, the new way of cruising with all the right protocols in place. So when the time is right, I think Clia will be a tremendous asset to help us and help the travel agent understand to still attract those newcomers. And I'm sure in the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see a really healthy cruise industry. And clearly we need to spend the time to get ready for that growth, but the growth is still coming.
Okay, very good to hear your optimism. So previously then, Clia might have been concentrating on educating agents about the different ships or about the different destinations or the value of cruise. You know, we've had lots of sessions like that. You're saying it needs to focus on the new world of cruising and the new protocols. So are you talking about health and safety procedures that you guys are now putting in place to reassure customers that cruising is a safe holiday choice?
I think first thing I'd say, Lucy, is that those aren't new things. You know, in the whole history of cruising, public health, safety have been absolutely at the forefront of everything that the cruise lines have done, and at the forefront of what Clia have done as well, and educating people on the efforts of the cruise lines around public health and around the safety of our guests and crew has been paramount in our communication forever. I think what's happening now, as Peter's identified, is we've had a global crisis that's really impacted travel, and all travel needs to change, and cruise isn't exempt from that. We'll have to make, you know, significant changes in our operations in order to move and be successful in the new world. And the role of Clia will be in, first of all, in helping the cruise lines to work together to create those new protocols, and then to educate both the travel agents that we work with and consumers about what's been put in place. That means that we can, you know, comfortably and confidently welcome people back on board the ships.
Yeah, and give me an idea, because obviously we had Heathrow Airport talking a week before last around putting in body temperature scanners before you even got through the airport and had a chance to get on an aircraft. is that the kind of thing we're talking about on cruise ships, or you're saying you need to put in these new protocols or change your operations? What kind of things is the cruise sector looking at? I'm not asking you to say anything definitive because I'm sure it's being worked through, but what areas would you be looking at? Is it around increased social distancing, because of, you know, or is it technology? What is the cruise line currently? You know, you've got Peter in your big company, you've got that innovation lab based in Miami that I've been to, in your parent company in Royal Caribbean. I mean, these guys are super smart that they're coming up with incredible new technologies. What are you guys working on that we might see come to the fore?
But it's too early to share that detail. There's a huge amount of work that's going on behind the scenes, but I think you identified the right thing, that I'm sure the ambition of the cruise industry is to go above and beyond what people would be expecting to happen, in the same way that we have in the past, not just on innovation. But Tony raised the point that we've been at this now for a long, long time. If you think about the norovirus, if you go back 10 years and how prevalent norovirus was and was seen as a cruise ship issue, and the work that has now been done over the last 5 to 10 years has been terrific. And we've managed to educate guests and travel agents, and notably educate all the travel journalists that write about us as to the health and safety that's been put in place. We now have to start that all over again. It's too early now to start talking about what those protocols may be.
Okay.
I'm confident that the ambition of the industry will be to go above and beyond what people would expect, so that we can safely welcome people back on board the ships in the future.
But
Now,
allow me to say, Lucy,
yeah.
as Tony already rightly mentioned, you know, most of the protocols are already there. We just need to adapt ourselves to the new world. So if we're talking about thermal cameras, we already had the thermal cameras. We even had thermal cameras, you know, at the office near Uxbridge. So we all do deep fleet, you know, sanitation and cleansing, you know, 5 times a day. So there's a lot going on, because the security and the safety of passengers has always been our priority. We will just need probably to focus on different areas. You mentioned one like the social distancing. So how's that going to come into play? So this is something that we are already, you know, looking at and working on. But I'm pretty confident saying that we will be back, and we will be back stronger.
I mean, it's small.
We're all learning from this, you know.
Yeah, I know, I understand that. But even small things, on your sister brand, Peter, Azamara, I know they don't ever shake hands, ever. I mean, and that's the only cruise line I'm aware of that. There might be others, but they always fist bump, and they've been doing that for a long time because they don't want to pass on germs. So it's not
every guest
stuff, is it? It could be all manner of things that are brought in across the cruise industry that will make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. That's the ambition, and I'm absolutely confident that's where we'll get to.
Okay, I just wanted to pick up, and I am being devil's advocate here because I don't necessarily agree with this, but you mentioned journalists and how you've got an education to do around the people that are writing about journalists, about cruising, sorry. And yesterday in The Guardian, there was an article saying, would people ever go on cruises again? No, was the headline. And the stand first was, cruise ships have become floating dungeons where the unlucky have been confined, ideal incubators of infectious diseases. You know, lots of information, you know, lots of the article's a long article with all sorts of things in it that would make you turn. But the problem is, people are reading this, whether it's true or not, and I'm sure you would debate it and dispute it, but people are reading this stuff, consumers are reading this stuff. And, you know, earlier when I was talking to Antonio, he said, look, the cruise industry, you know, or the travel industry has been hit, but cruise has been really hit. You know, I'm not seeing articles like that written about other parts of the travel industry. Why is cruise, or, you know, why is cruise being singled out if it's as safe as getting on a plane? And what can the cruise industry do to overcome articles like this that are so damaging for consumers who might be considering a cruise?
So I think it is, unfortunate that cruise seems to have been singled out in the travel industry through this. And I think some of that is because of the high profile nature of some of the incidents that have happened, and it's been front page news. And unfortunately, we are seeing some of the media turning now to, you know, some of these more speculative pieces around this kind of thing. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that guests are now, for the large part, are safely home. And, you know, the cruise lines are turning their attention to how we adapt and evolve into the new world and get ready to start sailing again. I think what we need to do as an industry is continue to educate consumers, and the travel agents will assist us in doing this, on all of the things that we are doing. I think it is rather unfortunate, as you point out, Lucy, that at the moment cruise seems to have been singled out as part of travel that's really been at the heart of this. And the reality is that this is a global virus that's affected pretty much everyone in all of the countries around the world, and it's not something that's single to cruise, and it's not something that the cruise industry has either created or has sort of shared around the world. We've been a victim of a global pandemic, unfortunately.
Yeah, understood.
We know how cruising works. Our travel agent partners know. Lucy, you know more than most because you've visited many ships. And a lot of the cruise journalists, whether they're working for travel publications or the national press, really write about our industry in a very informing way. It's understandable that when things get into the news headlights, it's a different set of people. It's news journalists who are writing about cruise ships, who haven't been aware of the developments over the last 5-10 years, who don't understand the protocols we already have in place. And it's our job now to educate them. It's been very interesting watching some of these articles where some of the wording has been appalling, to be frank. It's been objectionable, not fair, and unreasonable. But it's up to us to overcome that. And it's been interesting for us to see many of the comments from our regular cruisers on our social media sites immediately jumping to the defense of the cruise industry because they understand how it works.
Yeah.
So you'll always get this out there journalism driven by the news hound element of some of those publications. It's our task to overcome that and to educate them and to calmly go about doing that, to put everything in place. And that's what we will do. But to suggest that there won't be anybody cruising again is a little bit far from the truth. We all know that this incredible industry will be thriving again, as will airlines, hotels, and other sectors.
But do you think, I mean, obviously lots of people have got ships on order. Tony, you announced just this morning that Enchanted Princess is going to be delayed. I mean, it's obviously still going to come because it's nearly built. We were due to name her in Southampton later this year. So, I mean, perhaps you want to just talk about that initially, but, you know, in terms of the ships that are just on order but not under construction, do you think there will be a slight pause? Can the industry sort of slightly put a pause on all the new tonnage coming online to give it time to recover, or will that not be necessary?
I think, well, I'll talk first about Enchanted Princess, and that is a situation that's is largely unavoidable. You know, the shipyard where Enchanted Princess is being built has had to close. It continues to be closed now, and the final stages of the delivery of that ship have therefore inevitably been delayed, which has meant that we're not able to proceed with our plans to name her in Southampton on June the 30th. So it's an unfortunate but inevitable situation, and to be frank, it wouldn't be right to be proceeding with a ship naming celebration in the current environment anyway, or even logistically possible. So I think that's a natural thing. I think once the shipyards get back up and running and are able to return to normal business, that we'll continue to see the ships that are planned being built and being delivered, albeit to a slightly new schedule, because there's going to be a knock-on impact from the current crisis.
From the new, because obviously, Antonio, you've got new ship. Well, everyone's got new ships, but you're saying that it would be a slightly new schedule, but only due to the build capability because the yards have been closed. You don't think that the global cruise industry will sort of cancel or delay any of its orders on the books?
No, I don't believe we will be cancelling anything. So it's still early days, but the business plan is there. We might need to adjust the timings on the schedule, as Tony said, because there are some logistical, impediments or obstacles. Most of the shipyards are actually shut at the moment, or again, are working with a limited number of people. So we might see more of a delay in terms of ship launches. And another thing we should also take into account is where we're going to base those ships in the future. So which areas, are going to open up first, and which ones, we might need to wait a little bit longer before we start visiting them again. But right now, we're not considering of cancelling anything. It's probably just a matter of readjusting our plan, taking into account that there will be, for obvious reasons, some delays.
Okay, I mean, that is brilliant to hear, because it shows that you are confident that it really will come back. In terms of where I mean, I know you haven't got a crystal ball and you don't know where will open up first, but you all said that you were getting some encouraging signs for 2021. Where are people looking to cruise if they are making these future cruise bookings? Is there a particular region that is more popular than others that you think people are more confident about going back to?
So I think that the comment I'd make, Lucy, is that if you look at some of the high profile challenges over the recent weeks in terms of repatriating guests and effectively getting them home safely, it's been the more remote and exotic destinations that are featured in that. And I think that therefore naturally when people look to come back, they're probably going to either look at the more traditional cruising destinations, like the Caribbean and the west coast of the US and Mediterranean and sailing from the UK, than some of the more exotic destinations like, say, Asia or South America.
That's quite difficult for all of the brands here. You mean Peter's got his world cruises and some of your more you've got your more adventurous destination expedition ships that so is that going to be a problem? You're going to have to really change your programs and itineraries?
I think
one of the great things about our industry is we can move the ships.
Full stop.
but it's a timing thing as well. I guess what we're talking about is where things are most likely to come back first, and it's likely to be shorter duration cruises in more traditional cruising destinations.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's that would be the logical first places that cruises will return and where people will have more confidence. So there'll be more, as Peter says, you can move the ships there and there'll be more availability in those destinations. And I think then over time, we'll return to some of the longer durations and some of the other destinations as well, because sure enough, the demand for those will return over time too.
Okay. I'm conscious of time and I do want to get on to some more practical things. I mean, I think you've all at some point said that travel agents are going to be absolutely key to helping you with this recovery. The demand is going to be there. You're sure of that. It might take a little while, but you're going to need agents to do that education piece, and there'll be a little bit of starting over. They've done a good job up until now, but there will be a job to do. So what are you doing now? What are you hoping that travel agents will be able to help you with, and how are you sort of engaging with them so they can then engage with the customers?
Well, we needed the agent support, of course, to keep the customers. So again, they're supporting us with redeeming, the future cruise credit vouchers, and again with assisting their passengers or their customers. I've also seen many agents, of course, encouraging them to take advantage of the Cruise Flexible program. So they play a key role within our business. So they have an amazing relationship with their customer, and we rely on them to make sure that we are giving as much support as possible to make sure that the vast majority of these customers will cruise again in the future. And we are talking to each and every agent. Each and every agent has different requests or different needs. They might need specific support, and we're listening to everyone and helping where possible.
Okay.
And the very importantly, Lucy, we and other lines are protecting their commission, which is one of the most practical things we can do. So not only protecting commission on cancelled bookings, but also then protecting commission on the future cruise credit for the next booking. So commission is sort of the heart of travel agents' income. So we move
hang on, do they hold on? They don't get it twice though. They don't get it.
Yes, you get commission on the cancelled booking and commission on the new booking as well with Silversea. So
and Tony, you're nodding. That's fantastic.
We're doing exactly the same thing. So the agent gets to earn on the booking because obviously it's been cancelled through no fault of theirs.
Fine.
So they continue to earn on the cancelled booking, and then they earn commission on the future cruise credit as well.
Okay. That's fantastic. You're nodding as well, Antonio. Is that something that MSC is also doing?
Yeah, we're all moving in that direction. So this is what we're exactly doing now with our agents right now. So.
Okay. All right. So that's very important. So that will give them sort of confidence and loyalty, or that will give you the loyalty from the agent. That's fantastic. And then obviously we've mentioned Clia and how important their role is going to be, but unfortunately, you know, and understandably, they've had to cancel their Clia's main conference this year, which was at the end of April. And I guess there'll be other, you know, things like ship launches, which would have been a fantastic educational opportunity for agents to see ships, and that helps them sell. So without that sort of face-to-face and practical educational piece, what else are you encouraging them to do? I know you're keeping in touch to help them with the rebookings, but or maybe it's just too soon, but I guess it will come that you'll have to still inspire about the future.
Yes, I think it's we're all itching in our hearts to get out there and start promoting, but it's the wrong time to do that at the moment. It's too early. It would be the wrong thing to do. So at the moment, it's about support. So it's about talking to them, sharing information, sharing education, telling them what's going on, giving them some interesting things to tell their customers in turn what's happening with our industry. But it's too early to start promoting. As and when that time comes, then, you know, working particularly electronically with travel agents, there'll be good opportunities to start to rebuild the market. At the moment, it's too early for that. So we're in a sort of support phase at the moment, and we're all working incredibly hard with our teams to get through all of the refund process, the future cruise credit process, because there's an overwhelming amount of transactions to be done in that arena. And we're trying to work as best we can to give the agent and our guests what they're looking for, while our guests are doing, our staff are doing that from home. So there's a huge effort going on from all of us to support travel agents as best we can. And we're still very contactable, we're still very visible, and we're willing to help in any way we can. At the moment, though, for us, it's all about support. And we must give them the support until the time is right to recover and start to rebuild and promote.
Yeah, and I guess you don't really have a time scale on when you'll move into that next phase.
No, we're all locked down at home and out once a day. So, you know, none of us can go anywhere. You know, who would have thought that we always used to worry when the Foreign Office came out and said we advise against travel to this destination. It was always headline news. You know, let's not remember they're currently saying we advise you not to travel at all to anywhere in the world. But the world is still a beautiful place. I go out to my bike ride. Nature's fantastic at the moment. The world's a beautiful place. And people will still want to travel when the time is right. But for now, it's about supporting our travel agents as best we can at this period in time.
Okay.
I think Peter makes a really interesting point about kind of people sort of not being able to travel at the moment. But I think people are thinking about travel and not necessarily thinking about booking. But you know, the way that all of the cruise lines, I think, are partnering with agents at the moment is really important. And there's a sense of kind of community and expectation about when we'll be able to travel again. And I think it's important that we're all, particularly from a cruise perspective, continuing to talk about those experiences and you know, the joy of travel, and looking forward to getting back to that and having that real, I guess, the community spirit about the world that we will return to, because we will return to a world where we will want to travel again. So it might not be right now that people are talking about booking, but they're certainly thinking about, well, how good will it be when I can go on holiday again, and which destinations will I like to visit? And there's lots of conversations going on about that. And you know, that's an interesting area that we're partnering with travel agents at the moment, is to keep those conversations going and to talk about.
Did you say you're partnering? Are you sort of providing them with sort of you've got your Discovery Channel partnership? I mean, how are you doing it practically when you say you're having conversations? But
it's things, you know, it's the things that we would always do, but I guess there's more focus now on things like destination toolkits and things like that, rather than on sales and promotions and that kind of thing. So, you know, we're providing the training and the materials, but also, you know, just engaging, you know, helping travel agents to engage consumers in conversation about travel is, I think, an important part of this phase in the journey.
Tony's right. It's about dreaming to a sense. We launched a campaign on social media called Yearning to Sail Again, and we're sharing that with our travel agent partners. And for example, it's one of our expedition leaders talking about books he's written and read about travel, and one of our cocktail guys on one of the ships coming up with a whole list of cocktails you can make at home while you're thinking and while you have the time to dream. So engaging with people is really important, and we share those tools with travel agents so they too can talk to their database. It's about, we call it Yearning to Sail Again, but it's about still letting people think about how important travel is in their lives. And of course, never forget how important travel is, not just cruise, but the travel industry. to the global economy and to the UK economy. It will come back.
Okay. All right. Well, that's probably a great place to leave it. You know, it's fantastic to hear that, you know, well, what a period you've been through. It sounds like you've been working so hard, both operationally and also with your agent partners. It's great to hear your optimism that it will come back, and I'm sure agents watching this will support you as we will at Travel Weekly. So thank you very much for your time, and we wish you the best of luck, and it'd be great to maybe get you back on here in a few weeks' time to see how things have changed and moved on. But for now, thank you to Antonio from MSC, to Peter from Silversea, and to Tony from Princess, and wearing his Clia hat as well as chairman of Clia. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks to you, Lucy.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.